Hi, this is Sergeant Beast Larson. I was asked a couple days ago to make a video about how do you handle newer officers that argue back with supervisors, that smart off to supervisors and have that attitude. And I said, well, I supervise in a behavior unit. I was busy handling this. And the answer that I gave and suggesting maybe somebody else talk about this in a discussion answered the question. What I normally did as a supervisor in a behavior unit, I had to have officers with me. It wasn't something I was working alone at because it was a total lockdown unit and we kind of worked as a group. So I kind of answered the question in itself to him, and it dawned on me. But I'm not the only supervisor in America in correction or law enforcement. I'm not the best, I'm not the worst, I'm not the most experienced or educated, but I have a method. The number one part of the method, what was a question asked to you when you wanted to become a sergeant? What styles of leadership, and I didn't write this down because you should know this off the top of your head. What are 4 styles of leadership? This will help you to answer that question. Lead by example, dictatorship, a democratic style, by vote, or the laissez-faire. I know I say that wrong, and that's the just don't give a care and go on and just let things happen. It'll let it work out by itself. Those are your 4 styles of leadership. And the reason there are 4 styles, because we're all different, but each situation needs to be handled differently. So keep that in mind, your 4 styles. The next question they're going to ask is, what are the types of disciplinary? And these are pretty much universal. How do you handle an officer? You start with verbal counseling. You're going to have a discussion with them. Letter of counseling. Something on paper documenting this after the verbal. The third is a letter of reprimand, something that's a little bit longer lasting in your file. Letter of counseling may stay 30 days. Letter of reprimand maybe a year or 2 years, depends on your agency, your state law. So you verbal, 2 different types of written documentation. You can find them. Some places have where there's fines for certain things. Payroll deduction, demotion. Number 5 would be paid or unpaid leave, suspension. And number 6, termination. So if you put your styles of leadership together and you put your types of disciplinary together, formally you can answer your own question. But how do you go about that verbal conversation? What do you say? Well, there's times that, and I want to dedicate this to my best friend Will from down at the prison, Hayes State Prison in Georgia. He and I were partners in the behavior unit, and we did this to help people frequently that had attitude, that had uncertainty, because working in a prison isn't just your normal job to jump into. But we he was an experienced 8-year plus Marine, so we both had been through, careers already, of formal leadership. We both had been supervisors in other jobs. So it kind of just naturally for the 2 of us, as our partnership was so strong, we could take an officer that was new, that had an attitude, and say, hey, this guy was like this. Lieutenant would even ask us, hey, this officer's having a problem. Can you guys talk? So we did a lot of exciting things in the behavior unit. We were dealing with the inmates, always breaking sprinkler heads, covering themselves in baby oil and, toothpaste or feces and wanting to fight. All the bizarre things that happen in a prison. That's what we were dealing with. So we could take a newer, potentially, or a problem officer with us and, kind of ask them, how did you get recruited? Why did you want a job in corrections? How did you end up here? Kind of starting with that. And that seemed to help. You want to break the ice. You want to have a conversation. You don't want to come along and say, hey, you got an attitude to supervisors, knock it off. Now, every once in a while, you might need to say that. It's where your styles of leadership fall in. We tend to solve most of our problems in the lead by example and less of the dictatorship. Lead by example, kind of the democratic, put those 2 together, to give them a chance, question and answer feedback. So we're asking a question, they're answering us. And we tell them, hey, here at the prison, we've got this. Normally officers start off working, the tower a little bit. They work in GP. Kitchen officers are very experienced. The outside perimeter officers in the vehicle carrying, the sidearm and the shotgun are experienced officers. And we'd start to lay out a little bit of the job assignments. Officers that work the special details are very experienced because they need to handle moving inmates around to do jobs, laundry, going to the kitchen, the outside details, the grass mowing details, the ones that have privilege outside. You have to know how to handle them, not be manipulated, what to watch for, et cetera, et cetera. So we may take them along and say, hey, come with us for a little bit. Get them relieved, get a post swap for somebody. And this is where you have to treat your experienced officers well, because you're going to need this favor and say, hey, hey, so-and-so, Officer Smith, John Smith, we need to talk and work with this new guy for about 2 hours. Would you help us out by switching posts with him? A new officer, an older officer, if you're treating them right and you work with them and you're teaching them career development, they're in turn going to help you out and take this post. You see where I'm getting at? This is where the answers in your sergeant board and your intelligence and common sense are going to work together to answer, to help solve your new problem, your new officer problem. But you take a new guy along and say, look, here's the CERT team. These guys are in shape. They love this. These guys like to run and work out all the time. They wear fancy clothes. They do fancy stuff, exciting stuff. You want to be a part of that? Tell them exactly what they need to do to get on that team. Put them in touch with somebody. Let them talk to that officer. Let them talk to somebody on a tactical squad if it's different. The special team, special ops. That's how you kind of help a new person that has some problems. It's not always bark at them. It's not always write them up. Sometimes you got to challenge them. Show them something. You're not reinventing the wheel. Show them the wheel. Maybe they're driving a old Chevy Chevette, Dodge Omni, for those that are old enough to remember that. Maybe they'd like to move up to, the Taurus, the Honda Civic, Honda Accord kind of car, Camry, Nissan Altima. Throw that out there. Maybe work up to a Dodge Charger Challenger type of officer performance. So it's baby steps, it's gradual, and it's progression. So I hope this makes sense. I want to keep this under 10 minutes. Brian, thanks again. My buddy always have great ideas for videos. It really can be solved. You have to be the supervisor that has the patience and the knowledge and take the time to help your officers. It's a little bit more challenging when you're higher ranking than a sergeant, as a lieutenant and up. When your sergeant is the one that's talking back, you're still going to go through basically the same, because that's what your policies are. You're going to have your discussions, but it's not, hey, you're new, how did you get here? It's, hey, you're a sergeant. What are your goals as a sergeant? How do you want to help the shift in the officers? So your conversation changes a little bit, but you still have to go through your written company policy, verbal, maybe some written, maybe a harder written that's longer lasting, that can affect further promotion, etc. And unfortunately, and I'll say this because it's going to happen, as a director of public safety and security at a company, I helped promote people to sergeant and lieutenant and assistant director. I've also had to demote a lieutenant to sergeant and take another sergeant and replace them. And that potentially caused some animosity and some problem, yes. And it took some time to work through that. But it's a part. You want to be promoted. You want to be a supervisor. You want that extra responsibility and rank and working your way up and the pay that comes with it. There's days you're going to get a snowball in your face, and there's days you throw the snowball. It snowed all week, so I had to throw that in there. But hope you like this video. Thanks again, Brian, everybody. It's Friday morning. Have a safe weekend. Be careful. This has been a rough week. Inmates attacking a lot of officers and supervisors. Buddy system. Be careful. Don't be alone. Don't let them get the jump on you. Have the big eyes open. Eyes in the front, eyes in the back. Be safe. Hit the like, hit the share. Don't forget to subscribe. Plenty more.